Alright, we're back on gaming. I want to say this right now, okay? I am so sick and tired. I mean, it's not even week by week now, it's day by day that I see the privileged, the middle to high class, are just going to tell the rest of the world what they should do, how they should act. You know, because their ideas matter more than anyone else's. Fuck that. Okay? That is not how the real world works. And I say this due to the fact that just not too long ago, we saw a guy write an article, Gamergate versus the UN. First off, there is no versus the UN. There isn't anything to say. The UN already apologized for what happened. What is there to be trying to put people at odds? You're trying to create drama. But the guy who writes this, it's just, you gotta be fucking kidding me. You know, he wants to try and defend the UN and he wants to be for the oppressed. The guy who writes this is on a fucking boat. You can't get any more privileged than that. It's almost like there's zero self-awareness going on here. And speaking of zero self-awareness, I want to thank Anita Sarkeesian. Alright, I want to say congratulations and thank you for showing us just how much more ignorant you can be. For those who do not know what happened, Anita Sarkeesian, the same Anita Sarkeesian who said that she was for segregation, yes, yeah, equality, but she's for segregation, okay? She had a meeting with Bungie not too long ago. That's right, Bungie, the developer. And Bungie was like, yes, it was a great talk, we had a great time, blah, 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 you know, they just, you know, want to compliment each other. And gamers got very upset about it. How dare you bring in Sarkeesian on? Why would you do that? First off, I don't know why you'd let somebody speak who doesn't like games. I don't know why you'd do that to begin with. You could have went and got an experienced gamer to do all that, but because she's getting speaker fees and because she's juiced into the system, it should tell you right then and there. Anybody who can get contacts to the UN, be on the Colbert Report, have meetings with Bungie, constant speaker, come on, man. Look at it for what it is. Wake the fuck up. It is privilege. Because not anyone can just do that shit. Not anyone. But no one wants to talk about that. We're just going to act like that doesn't happen. She just by chance ran into Bungie, right? Just by chance had some contests. Just by chance. All this shit in a row. Like dominoes. You're going to tell me still just by chance. No. Not at all. But gamers were upset about it and were saying, you know, Bungie betrayed gamers. I wouldn't say that's the reason why they betrayed gamers, you know, because they brought Sarkeesian on the talk. No. If anything, they betrayed gamers. Look what's going on with Destiny. Oh, yeah, you know, we'll talk about that in a bit. We'll talk about it in a bit. All right? But I want to give you more examples of people who are privileged or people who can afford shit and still complaining. And what I mean by this, Kanye West. And you're probably saying, fuck Kanye West. Fuck Kanye West. Yeah, fuck Kanye West. I've said it on video before. I say it. Fuck Kanye West. But, you know, ever since he was caught playing Street Fighter, the video game, the community, I should say, have been pretty much sucking him dry. You know what I mean? I mean, they've really been on that Kanye dick really hard. So, Kanye West comes out not too long ago, and he's playing a game, I guess, and he realizes he bought a game for his child, and he realizes that there's in-game, you know, there's add-ons for the game. In-game apps, you know, the add-on for it. And Kanye West goes on Twitter and has a tirade about it. And this is what he said. Kanye West, where have you been? I want to know that, because for years, we've been fighting against this. You know, part of the community, we've been fighting against this. We've been saying, you know, for years that we don't need add-ons because that's how they get you on microtransactions and things of that nature. How many reports did we see where parents were upset that they would let their kid use their iPad or whatever, and they would get the game, and before you know it, they would look at the bill and see that there was add-on after add-on after add-on that the kids would just buy. They were just hitting on the button because they wanted to keep playing. We saw a number of reports for that. Matter of fact, wasn't there a law not too long ago passed overseas, I believe, that if it was a free-to-play game and it had those type of add-ons like that, you couldn't consider it free-to-play anymore? So, this has been going on for years. And now Kanye West, now, you decide you want to open your mouth about it. Now, I guess some could say, in interest of fairness, you know, the guy's on tour a lot, he does a lot of things, he really probably doesn't know that much about video games. Okay, if that's the route you want to go, that's fine. But then also, I gotta look at our community and say, you're a bunch of fucking shitheads for trying to dick suck him for playing Street Fighter. Just saying. Okay? trying to bring him in as one of our own. He's not. And this is where I get this really is gut-wrenching feeling when I talk about celebrities trying to be gamers. And let's be honest, a lot of these celebrities aren't gamers. There are those who are some. Don't get me wrong. There are those. You know who you are. But there are also those who do this simply as a casual. We see all the time on YouTube when they're playing. It's very casual, like they're just trying to have fun, and there's nothing wrong with that either. Okay? But don't just try and front and act like you're part of this community when you're not. Kanye West, like I said, you can afford these add-ons. Okay? You're a millionaire. But let's get something straight. You're also a fucking hypocrite. And we've seen it time and time again because your one game that you made, as was reported before, had you and, who was it? Was it Future? You and Future? You were throwing gold chains on women in your one video game. And that sparked an outrage within women, and yet you got quiet on that, didn't you? Now you're going to sit here and try to take a moral stand when it comes to this and say it's wrong that you would do something like that. But you forget to realize that your woman, Kim Kardashian, her video game, guess what? Has in-game add-ons that you have to pay for. Yeah. But I don't see you saying anything about that, right, Kanye? Because that game is geared towards children as well. Young girls, you know what I mean? To the tweens. But you don't want to talk about that, do you, Kanye? Nah. You just want to sit here and try and make a stand, and people, all of a sudden, media picked up, Kanye West said something about video games, and he doesn't like microtransactions or add-ons, and blah, blah. We've been saying it for years, and falls on deaf ears. Parents complain about it. You get an article about it every once in a while. Still, nothing changes. Company, nothing changes. At least here in America, nothing changes. Kanye West says something. Oh my God, we got to make a story out of it. Should be ashamed of yourself, media. You really should. Because instead of sitting here and reporting that Kanye West said that, that should have been a gateway to say, you know what? This is a problem. Since we haven't listened to thousands, maybe millions of gamers throughout this, these years of talking about this type of stuff. Maybe it took a celebrity to expose it for what it is, and maybe we need to have a heart-to-heart about it. But no, that'd be too much contact with the community. Now, let's just report that he's mad because that's all you did. So what? He's mad. Fuck off. If you're not going to help, and try and have a solution to this, just I hate blah blah blah. Yeah, well, guess what? Do something about it. You could stand up and say something, seriously, and get people's attention since you yourself, Kanye, have contacts. But like I said, you're being a fucking hypocrite because Kim Kardashian has her own thing as well. So why don't you start by fixing things within house first before you decide to run your mouth on Twitter? Because that's just pure idiocy. Speaking of idiocy, I do want to talk about the TPP. That's right. For those that don't know, TPP is one of the... Oh my God, this copyright thing. And you have to understand, I'm coming from an angle for where it just happened to me yesterday. Okay? Because, for those who don't know, my sports video was taken down because I was trying to educate the public on when a professional fight should be stopped. And because I showed some footage and then stopped mid-fight to talk about what I was, what people were seeing so I can explain it to them, company got upset, and instead of taking the monetization, because as you know, I don't monetize my videos, but instead of taking the monetization like they usually do, they took the video down and put a strike against my account. That's right. Now, of course, when you go and try to defend your position on what's going on, because I did it for educational purposes, and it is fair use, because I didn't show the entire fight, but it is fair use, okay? They try to say that, you have to be careful if you want to, to defend this, and make sure that, you want to keep your video up, defend your position. Because if you defend your position, you could be sued. That's what YouTube tells you. You could be sued. I really wish someone would sue me over trying to inform the public on when a fight should be stopped and when it's not for a couple fucking seconds. I wish someone would fucking sue me over that. Fucking stupid. But this TTP thing. Leaked documents reveal that TPP forces ISPs to hand over copyright infringers' identities. That's right. So not only if you get caught with copyright infringement, no, now they want your identity, where you live, things of that nature. Now anybody who has ever try to defend their position from a copyright claim on YouTube, you know already they're going to ask you for your address and things of that nature, okay? But that's within their privacy. Now they want you to give it to them. So now they can hassle the fuck out of you. But that's not all. No. When they're talking copyright, they're talking all across the board. Now we're seeing articles that cosplayers, that's right, cosplayers, if you decide to cosplay as a character and go to a convention, guess what? That's copyright infringement. Yeah. This is how stupid this thing is. You know, for the years that I've done this, we have seen this bill tried to be passed by so many other names. SOPA, CISPA. I mean, and the thing is, they keep trying to slide it under the table because every time it is known, people fight against it. Because it's censorship. It is. And you should know by now how these companies are. If they can't have it, then nobody can have it. It's that simple. You know, things were a lot simpler back in, say, 2005, 2007, maybe. It was simpler. But now since you've let these companies into the woodwork, you know, companies now have their own Twitter account. They have their own Facebook now. Remember when MySpace was big? And companies were like, we're trying to get on the MySpace wagon. And then MySpace died really quickly, and companies didn't really recover from that, and they didn't know where to go. Because they got tired of making websites. Because, you know, it's amazing that every time I turn on TV now, whether it's whatever station, whatever broadcast you're watching, everyone has their own Twitter. Remember when I remember when the internet used to be very anti-establishment. You know, they didn't want companies on the internet because the internet was free ground for us to have fun. Same thing with trolls. Now these days you see trolls, they invade everything, every facet of the internet. Where back in the day, in the AOL days, they had their own corner, they had their own area, their own, shall we say, land that they stayed in, and it didn't bother anyone else. But now they have to come everywhere. It's amazing how, as years going on, I won't say that it's evolved. The technology has evolved, but people have devolved. And people have lost their fucking mind. You're going to let companies now come in. Companies have their own YouTube, which, hey, I'm for. If they want to put their own stuff out there, that's fine. But you also have to understand, and it seems like no company fucking understands this. If someone uses your footage, alright, they're not passing it off as their own, jackass. What they're doing is promoting you. That's what they're doing. It's free promotion. That's what it is. But for some reason, you don't understand that. Or it's just the fact that you're just being so fucking greedy that you don't see that. Now, with YouTube, I find it really funny due to the fact that with their algorithm, this is how they catch you in their auto algorithm. However, YouTube has made a number of mistakes when it comes to this and haven't fixed it. For example, anybody who has tried to upload, Mario Kart, I believe? Yeah. If you try to upload Mario Kart, we know that Nintendo tries to, do their thing. But at one point, there was an algorithm that a YouTuber was going around and copywriting everyone's videos. That's right, this happened last year. And the thing is, he wasn't. He went on his Twitter and he said, I am not going around single-handedly clicking on every video. He's like, I have nothing to do with this. It is a glitch on their end. He was like, but if you tell me who you are, I can go into the account and I can, decline the fact that I tried to copyright claim you. So it goes to show you that YouTube still has a number of problems. Not to mention, they don't even have a fucking customer service to reach. So let me get this straight, YouTube. Alright, you can make millions of dollars off of everyone, not provide any type of customer contact service whatsoever. No phone number whatsoever. You can sit and have all your money and try to buy out Twitch, but you won't give everyone, especially your partners, a contact number. You won't support your partners. You won't protect your partners. Okay, fuck you. That's how I feel. Let's move on. Because the TPP is going to get bigger than this. I'm telling you that now. But it's an absolute joke that this deal was made, and it was a secret deal. Was it what? It wasn't that fucking secret if we found out, was it? Okay. Anyways, like I said, I look forward to seeing what's going to happen since I defended my position. And it says, it's funny how you can claim something within a day, get it knocked down in a couple seconds, but if you defend your position, you have to wait 10 days. Yeah, 10 days. Get the fuck out of here. Anyways, let's move on. Street Fighter V. That's right. Street Fighter V will tell its story different than other games, says Capcom. Does it look like I care? I don't think it really matters. It's a fighting game. People want to fight. Granted, you're going to find out the stories and Frank and Charlie and all these type of things, or Frank and Nash, whatever the fuck you want to call them. You're going to find all these different stories, and I'm sure that still no one's going to be, upset with the story. If anything, they'll probably be pissed off the fact that there's something wrong with the game, or there's some type of glitch, or it needs a patch, or we know how this goes. Because gamers are worried more about gameplay than they are story. Unless it's Mass Effect. But, anyways, speaking of story, Street Fighter V, Laura has been revealed, her trailer, and, I find this kind of weird, because what we're hearing is that Laura is Sean's older sister, which, story-wise, I don't care. I don't have a problem with it. I think the character's cool. It'll be interesting to see what she can do with her setups, with electricity. However, here's the thing. When Ono comes out and says as though he's felt he's been betrayed, he's been backstabbed because of this trailer, because it was leaked, I'm thinking to myself, you are a grown-ass man. You are sitting here saying you are betrayed? We are talking about the same Ono, mind you, that had to go to the hospital because Capcom was like, here's all this work, here's all this work, here's all this work. Kill yourself, pretty much. Oh, you gotta go to the hospital? All right, we'll go to the hospital, come on back, and we'll get you some more. If that wasn't enough to tell you, Ono, that Capcom doesn't give a fuck what you think, or your employees around you don't give a fuck, that this leak is what took you to the breaking point and says, I was betrayed. Grow the fuck up. Seriously. Do you realize you were in a hospital and it didn't cross your mind then? You can't be this fucking stupid. Anyways, let's move on. Because speaking of promotion, I need to talk about this. I am so glad to announce here, and I'm going to promote it, Friday the 13th, that's right, is getting a new game. We knew it was coming, but we haven't seen anything on it. You know, we saw the battles between that and Summer Camp, and, you know, we saw the copyrights that were going on with that, and, remember the one game where, the likeness was too much towards Jason Voorhees, so they came down on him and everything about it. There were so many slashers that are still lined up to come out, that it feels like this is going to be the year that we really get some good quality survival horror slashers. However, in this Friday the 13th game, you can play as Jason. That's right. Now, we kind of figured that was going to happen due to the fact of what was happening last year with all this type of stuff. But you can play as Jason, which is cool. And this is the first Friday the 13th game in the previous, 25 years maybe? So this should be very interesting to see what happens. However, for those who have not seen it, let's look at the announcement trailer.
After it happened, I expected someone to do something. I expected parents to show up with questions and concerns. I thought the police would have done more, but nothing happened. Nothing changed.
Shh, quiet. Someone will hear us.
They opened it again the next year, and they were back to their old habits.
Troy, did you hear something?
Relax, babe. Probably just Steve trying to scare us.
They're just kids, right? So was he. He was just an innocent boy. I was a good mother to him. My boy. My sweet, sweet Jason.
Though it's an announcement trailer, I can't wait to see more. Seriously, I can't wait to see more. It's generating enough hype, and as we know, and I have some more news for you when it comes to, survival horror aspects of gaming, but I really think that this game could be promising in the right hands, and I think they do have it in the right hands. Now, here's the thing I do have a problem with, alright, because I'll put the link in the info bar to their Kickstarter and things of that nature. They went and got Adam Sessler. That's right. Adam Sessler to promote this. Hey gamers, I have a really cool thing to talk to you about. This is the same Adam Sessler, and people have written articles about this week. The same Adam Sessler that said gamers are despicable, they are horrible people, and they're worse than weapons. So, because he said that about gamers, about the community, you turn around and now you want to try and sell a product to the very same people that you hate? Seriously, Adam Sessler, you really are on drugs, aren't you? A lot of people just say, lay off the stuff, Adam. Yeah, I'm going to say it now. Lay off the stuff, Adam. You sat here and said that gamers are the worst thing. And now you want to try and sell a product to them. Yeah, it's about money at the end of the day, isn't it? Fuck off. So I put it like this. People, You don't need Adam Sessler. The developers of this game, you don't need Adam Sessler. I'll tell you now, as a horror fan to another, I will buy that game because it looks so far good, and I'm waiting to see more, of course, so I can be more of an educated consumer on the issue. But if you pull this off, I will support you. You don't need that douchebag. I'm just letting you know that now. It's going to sell because people have been asking for this for a very long time. That's what it is. Now, I want to move on, talk about more survival horror. Until Dawn DLC is possible. Possible. But, here's the thing. They're thinking of doing a full-on sequel. Now, I'm for this. A lot of people have given Until Dawn great reviews. People have played it, say they love it. Here's my only problem with Until Dawn. Okay? It was originally supposed to be a PS3 exclusive, and then they moved to PS4. And then people, the developer said, well, the PS3 version has only been delayed. Then we found out that it was only going to be an exclusive for the PS4. So the developers, at one point, just lied. That's the only problem I have with it. If you're going to make a full-on sequel, I would say I'm all for that. Because survival horror needs to come back, especially slashers, needs to come back. So I'm okay with that. You want to sit here and say, we're not going to give you DLC? I'm fine. I would rather you take the time and make a legit sequel because the game sold very well for those who don't know. Very impressive numbers for a survival horror game. For a slasher game. So, like I said, the market is there for it. I would rather them sit and make a full-on sequel instead of DLC. And I say this due to the fact is, I'm going to explain for those who never had played the game. A game called Heavy Rain. That's right. A game called Heavy Rain that everyone loved and thought that was really hokey and jokey at times, and could be wildly inconsistent depending on your choices, but it was supposed to have DLC. And then we had, as I call it, the Taxi Driver DLC, which was the Taxidermist DLC. Then we heard that there was supposed to be more DLC coming along the way, for Norman Jayden, for all these other characters that were in that game, okay? And then the DLC never came, because Sony fucked them. That's why. So, for all this DLC that we were promised, it never happened. Then we asked, well, are we at least going to get a sequel to see what happens? Or a prequel? And Quantum Dream said, no, you're not getting that either. So, it kind of left us high and dry. It really did. I would say it left some of us pretty salty. Because I was really looking forward to all the DLC. However, we did get Beyond Two Souls, but that doesn't make up for what happened, the situation with Heavy Rain. So, if you're going to do this Until Dawn, and your, developers Until Dawn, if you're going to make a sequel, please, I would rather you make a sequel than DLC, because Sony's track record with games like this isn't very well done. That's all I'm going to say on it, okay? Also, in more news, Allison Road Kickstarter. Now, look, we talked about this on Twitter. For those who don't know, Allison Road, a lot of people were hyped about it, but the Kickstarter was failing, and it only had 10 days left to make thousands of dollars, which looked like it was not going to happen. We talked about this on Twitter, and we were really disappointed in the fact that Allison Road looked like it was not going to get the fanfare it deserved. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people questioned Gamer's Heart on this one, because they were saying, well, it's the spiritual successor to Silent Hill PTs or whatever, and people were very, hype about Silent Hill, so you would think that they would support Allison Road. Then we started hearing accusations that maybe they were just Kojima fanboys, and because Kojima's not at the helm anymore, there's no reason for that. You know what I mean? He's going to work with Guillermo del Toro, and who has come out recently and said there was no reason for the cancellation. But, people said maybe they were fanboys of Guillermo del Toro because, his other game that was supposed to come out, we saw the trailer for that, was canceled. So this was his first time to, to get into video games, and we could see what he could do. Well, I won't say his first time, but, his atmosphere merged with Kojima, so it sounded like it was going to be great. And, we thought that was going to happen, and it didn't. So then Silent Hill fans, we thought that Silent Hill fans would support it, and then accusations that people just wanted another Silent Hill, and now they're not getting Silent Hill, they walked away from it. So you got three different types of fans that were in, this project that Kojima was putting together. And because it didn't happen, it fell apart, those fan bases went their separate ways. And then, and people said, well, I guess then survival horror fans will just support this game, Allison Road, which, like I said, it's a spiritual successor, but it wasn't doing well. Well, now the Kickstarter has been canceled because it will be published by Team 17. So, Team 17 came along and saved it. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with this game. We don't know if it's going to be good or bad, or if it's in the right hands. But you got to give Team 17 credit for saving this, because I personally feel as though it was not going to survive the Kickstarter. And they were asked, if they didn't make the Kickstarter, would they find different avenues, to venture to get this game made? And they did say yes. They weren't going to give up on this game. They weren't. So it's good to see that someone at least, tried to help them out. It almost reminds me slightly of Bayonetta 2. Where Bayonetta fans were like, well, where's Bayonetta 2? And then when you found out that Nintendo, because no one else wanted to save Bayonetta at the time, Nintendo stepped to the forefront, was like, yes, we'll give you the money to help make it, and it's got, it's going to be our exclusive because we're giving you the money, we're helping you. And then fans got mad about it wasn't on other platforms and started sending death threats to Platinum Games, which made no sense. There's no reason for it. If it wasn't for Nintendo coming to the aid of Platinum Games, you wouldn't have Bayonetta 2 at all. But people tend to forget about that. Anyways, in more survival, I don't know if you'd want to call it survival horror, but it is horror, and it is masochism at its finest, alright? Bloodborne, that's right. As you know, Bloodborne has been out. Some of you have said Bloodborne is really easy. A number of you have said Bloodborne is really hard. Reminds you of Dark Souls. Bloodborne Game of the Year Edition, that's right, has now been announced. And now people are going to run for it. And I've always tried to say, patience is key. Because you knew this was going to happen. However, if you wanted to go buy the game beforehand, hey, that's on you. You want to get your hands on it. But you should have known, in these days and times, for the previous couple of years, we've seen Game of the Year Edition, Ultimate Edition, Definitive Edition. They'll name it whatever edition they need to try and resell the copy to you, stocked with all the DLC and all that crap on it. You know how that works. It's your decision. Anyways. I want to move on because I did say something about Dark Souls. Dark Souls 3 beta is now available to download. That's right, Dark Souls 3. It says, but you need a code to play it. So I would say just hold on. If you're going to download the beta, hold on to it and just wait. But Dark Souls 3 is now available to download. I can only imagine, the Let's Plays that's going to go for that. And hopefully there won't be a lot of broken speed runs. Hopefully they won't for the beta. We'll see what happens, okay? Also, in more news, Call of Duty. I have to talk about Call of Duty because it's one of those, I don't know what the fuck you were thinking, to be quite honest. I think from here on the rest of this video, I'm going to have to say, what the fuck you were thinking? It's this simple. Call of Duty developer apologizes for fake terroristic attack tweets. Now look, this was part of their campaign, alright? They tried to change their website, they wanted to change tweets, they wanted to make it seem like in real time that they were reporting terrorist attacks. But some people actually took that to heart and thought that there were real terrorist attacks going on, and there were a lot of complaints about it, and now Call of Duty is now apologizing for it. They're trying to say that it wasn't meant that way, and they're just trying to promote the game, and the fuck were you thinking? You should have known better, okay? However, in more news, what the fuck were you thinking? The Russian army. They come out and say that we need World of Tanks gamers. World of Tanks gamers. You gamers who play World of Tanks. To operate robot tanks. To operate the robot tanks. So you are literally coming out and trying to recruit gamers for real war. The fuck are you thinking? You've got to be kidding me that this is... No, stop. This is where it goes too far. And every time you hear people say, well, war games are nothing but propaganda, and we saw in years, I've reported it myself, we've seen throughout the years, the military try to use Call of Duty to get you into the real military, and they got caught doing that. Did they not? Matter of fact, the military operation base that tried to do it, the recruitment center, that tried to do it here in Philadelphia, shut down. They actually made it a skate park now, because they shut it down in it used to be called Franklin Mills. Now it's like something Philadelphia Mills or whatever the fuck it's called. But it used to be there, and they shut it down because of that. Okay. Also, we saw from a couple years ago, Medal of Honor. Where in Medal of Honor, if you bought Medal of Honor, they gave you a pamphlet that said, "Hey, if you like using these type of guns virtually in the game Medal of Honor, here's a pamphlet where you can get the guns, the real guns." And we found out that EA was partnered with a lot of gun manufacturers. Did we not? So it goes to show you that every time somebody says that, it's propaganda, and we want to say, no, it's not, because it's a game. Majority of us, we play these games, have fun, we turn off the system, done. That's all we think, But then you have idiots like this who come out and try to recruit, broadly open out and try to recruit gamers for real war. fuck were you thinking? Anyways, let's keep moving on. The new Tomb Raider game, that's right, will offer 300 pieces of game-altering microtransactions. And PC Gamer, they're delighted about it. You've got to be kidding me. See, and here we go once again. Why the fuck, as a gamer, why, and this is where the media and the community are different, because it sounds like a hard sell. You can't tell me as a gamer you were delighted to pay for 300 pieces of microtransaction. You pay full price for a fucking game, not to mention, I'm sure the DLC that's going to come around, the season pass that's going to come around, and then you're going to tell me you're delighted to pay for 300 pieces of microtransaction. This is where we have a problem with the media. This is where the community should be upset. But of course, this person's going to defend their point. Oh, I'm so delighted. No, you're fucking crazy. You gotta be a fucking idiot to pay for all that. You gotta think, that's gonna be what? 120, maybe 140, depending on what they price the microtransactions. But you've gotta be kidding me that this is something that's going to happen. And you're delighted about it. There's nothing delightful about this whatsoever. Nothing. But let's move on. Speaking of, what the fuck were you thinking? 18 Destiny Emotes will cost you $35. $35! That's right, you know what? Let's see the screen so you can see it yourself. Really? Really, Bungie? And so everyone is complaining about them talking to near Sarkeesian? Shouldn't even be worried about that. You should be worried about this. Because if we do some simple math here, Bungie, Destiny, game costs what, $60? So you're telling me 18 emotes for $35, it's half your game. That's what you're charging. 18 emotes for half the game price. You've got to be fucking kidding me. Anyone who falls for this, if anything, you should be insulted. You should. As a gamer, as a community. Because right now, once again, we saw all the backlash from the Taken King. Now you're doing this. I don't understand how this company can stay in business with these type of practices. There's no way in hell you can tell me that somebody's, well, I don't know, there's someone stupid enough to go buy it. 18 emotes for $35 when you paid $60 for the fucking game, for the full game. For some emotes. But you can do the Carlton dance. Stop. Just stop. Can we please move on? What the fuck were you thinking? What the fuck? You know what? Speaking of more, what the fuck you were thinking? EA and their fucking bullshit. Let's get on with this right now. Star Wars Battlefront DLC Season Pass to be $50. $50! Let's get something straight here. Just last week they said, we're not going to hit you with microtransactions. And everyone's like, okay. And even some of you in the comment section said, yeah, they ain't going to hit us with microtransactions, but they're going to kill us on the DLC. And lo and behold, here comes the DLC pass for $50. That's right. So, no real space battles. There's more. There's more. Star Wars Battlefront has no dedicated chat system for the PC, but you'll be allowed to use third-party chat, systems. But you've got to be kidding me that you want people to pay $60 for this game, $50 for the season pass to get all the DLC, and you can't even give them dedicated chat? Are you fucking serious? And I find this funny because, behind all this, a lot of people want to say the game Battlefront, it plays more like Battlefield than it does the old PS2 one, because I had said, last week, a lot of people, they were saying that, it plays at PS2. And people were like, oh, no, it doesn't. Not at all. Here's the thing. I don't know whether I should be mad at EA or I should be mad at fucking Disney. Because Disney held the rights. They bought the Star Wars franchise and then handed the shit over to EA. Disney put in, was it this campaign for to get this game made is what, 180 mil? That's the budget? So 180 mil for the game and the advertising. Mind you don't really need that much advertising anyway due to the fact that if you throw anything Star Wars out there, Star Wars fans are going to flock to it. We've seen it in the past. But to sit here and say that you want us to pay $60 for a game, then $50 for a season pass, only later, which I'm sure is going to happen, come out with a Game of the Year edition, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Stop this. Like I said, this is dollars and cents now. And obviously, the cents is not very common these days. Gamers are just going to just eat shit up. No, like I said, you have to look at the numbers for what they are. Unless you're one of those children, all right, who has mommy and daddy pay for everything, or like I said, you were some guy rolling in dough who doesn't care. And I keep always hearing this. It's always optional. It's optional. That's been the excuse for like 4 years now. All right? It's optional. You don't have to buy it. You do realize that if you want your full game, you're going to have to buy it. Because, every time something comes out and they hard press you, they try to do that, that guilt factor. And we know how the advertising goes for the guilt factor. Well, if you want to stay with the cool kids group, or you want to stay, on the inside, on the curve, so that, all the out people, all those filthy casuals, you don't want them around. So if you want to stay on the inside track, you're going to have to buy this DLC, or you're going to buy this weapon, or you're going to buy this skin, or we're going to have Mr. T do a video for World of Warcraft because that's what's cool, because we want you to have that, and things of that nature. Stop. This is simply companies who don't know how can I put this, connect with the youth of the community, so then they have to use peer pressure tactics. We've seen this time and time again. Matter of fact, I talked about this in high detail about Devil May Cry when they did it. If you don't want to buy the game, fine, but you'll be missing out on some of the best action, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Hard sell. Like I said, anybody with a brain who can make their own decisions and go their own way would know that you're bullshitting them. You should be able to recognize a hustler when you see one. And when these companies are hustling, because that's what they are, and we've seen it, have we not? Especially with EA, we have seen it time and time again. They will spend more money, and Activision, they'll spend more money on advertising than the actual game. We've seen, project managers say, we've released game-breaking games because, glitches in games, but our deadline, we had to meet it, then we just patch it later. They're not doing a service to the community, or to you gamers, to you consumers who buy these games. But of course, that's just crazy talk, right? I'm just crazy. And more news, because I have to ask, what the fuck were you thinking? Halo 5 Guardians. Now, last week, gave Halo 5. I gave it, because it went gold and gamers are, very happy about it. I said, congratulations. This week, you're going to tell me that Halo 5 Guardians has to take a 60 gig install? A 60 gig install! What the fuck is wrong with you? Man, look, at this point, every system, if you're going to have every system, every PC, every console should come with extra terabytes for years and years to come. You've got to be kidding me that this has a 60 gig install. Unreal. But also, Halo 5 will have microtransactions. That's right, and the pricing will be revealed, so I'll put that in the info bar for you as well. Unreal. But we should be delighted for microtransactions. Yeah. Let's keep going, please. Let's just keep going. After admitting that the PS4 has a huge lead, the Xbox boss says that the company is focused on gamers. With that being said, Shovel Knight for the Xbox One physical release disc has been canceled, listing publishing policies as a cause. You've got to be kidding me. Look, Microsoft, if you want to get in the graces of good graces of gamers, first off, you're only humbling yourself right now because you're losing. Let's be honest here. Because when you first revealed the Xbox One, you told Xbox fans to fuck yourselves. If you want to play backwards compatibility, keep your 360. We're going to have always online, so we got to watch what you're doing all the time. You were full of shit. You were. And I'm really hoping that you change. I hope that this is a really hard lesson for you. But let's be honest. The only reason you're acting this way is because you're losing. Notice Sony, they're winning right now, so they're not being humble about shit. They don't care. You notice they weren't humble until their PSN got hacked? That was the only time they were humble. Remember, that started because they were like, we have a great infrastructure for our network. Come get us, hackers. And then they got them, didn't they? And they were like, yeah, well, we didn't expect that. So, yeah. You companies, you start from the bottom. Us community make you what you are. Then you just forget about us. Because now you're all the way up top, and you're like, we're unstoppable. We're indestructible. And then when you start falling back down, then you want to show some humility. And you know what? By then, if you ask me, it's a bit too fucking late. Because you've stabbed gamers in the back time and time and time again. You can't come out and say now, and I understand this is a different boss now, but it's still Microsoft. System going after competitors, that's not healthy for our industry. It's funny because you spent a number of years making bank off of it. And that goes for every console. You played the console wars, you divided up the community, and you watched people act like fucking children. Then when they went after you, you said, gamers are immature. Well, you put the bug in their ear. You're the one who set this up. You created this monster. And now you didn't know how to contain it. So now that everything now is, oh, we're losing, and I don't know what we're going to do, let's try and be humble. Maybe if we're humble enough, people will sympathize with us and buy an Xbox One. Doesn't work that way. You're hoping it does, but it doesn't work that way. If you want to gain gamers' trust back, you bring games to the table. And right now, that Shovel Knight has been taken away. It's like, it's Shovel Knight. Like, seriously. You couldn't even do that? You couldn't even you couldn't come to a deal with that? Remember just a couple years ago where indie developers were walking away from Microsoft because Microsoft were treating them like shit? Remember that? Yeah. And then at E3, Microsoft was like, look, we respect indie developers. And they saw all these indie games all of a sudden. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not fooled. They said, you've got a lot to prove. Let's move on. Let's talk about Ubisoft. Ubisoft, the fuck were you thinking? Ubisoft refunds Might and Magic Heroes 7 buyers after misleading marketing. Because their editions, you were getting cards, you were getting a pamphlet and all this stuff, all this physical stuff. But you didn't give them the fucking game on a physical disc. So you gave them all this shit, and the game was still digital. What the fuck is that? So gamers complained, because as we know, gamers still want physical copies. They are not buying into your brand of bullshit when it comes to digital. We've talked about this before. Unless there's some type of fire sale or something, yeah, maybe gamers will go digital. Steam has something that's going on. That's why Steam sees so many sales. You know what I mean? But for you to try and pull this shit, Ubisoft, and give them all this physical stuff, all this physical extra stuff, and then you don't give them the game physically? Yeah, give them their fucking refund. And they deserve it. You should be ashamed of yourself. But as usual, it wasn't meant that way. It's just a miscommunication, right? They always say this. They can't just say, yeah, we fucked up. We fucked up. And now we gotta pay for it. Or you could be honest and say, you know what? We knew it was going to happen. This is how we planned it. This is how the package was. Because you gotta be kidding me. When they're putting these packages together, these collector's editions and things of that nature, they do not oversee all the product. Don't give me that shit. Because everything is accounted for. That's what a unit sold is. So you make sure. So they get everything they need. And then it goes down to the retailers, and then they make sure you get everything you need. So I'm not trying to hear it's just a miscommunication. I'm not trying to hear any of that. Anyways, I think that's all I'm going to say more about the fuck were you thinking. But in the last bit of news, alright, Square's next Final Fantasy game. Alright? Square's next Final Fantasy game is a definite. It says it won't be a sequel to Final Fantasy 15. Remember when Final Fantasy games used to just be the end-all, be-all? It was just, hey, that's your game, you're not getting a sequel, that's it. And then we saw Square just get this, they contracted some type of, epidemic, where Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy X2, which no one really talks about these days, Final Fantasy 13. Let's just give them all these things. We just gotta put Lightning in it. Matter of fact, we want Lightning to be the official mascot these days, that we're gonna put Cloud's armor on Lightning because we're gonna make you like her. Yeah. And as much as I like Lightning, don't get me wrong, I think she's a cool character. I think it was uncalled for. But now we have Square trying to go back to their, I don't want to say roots, because as we know, Square has been so obsessed, consumed with graphics more than gameplay. And that's what the biggest problem we've seen in a couple of years now with this Final Fantasy game that a lot of people were waiting for. Is the gameplay going to be good? What are they going to do? Are they going to follow Final Fantasy 11, which then turned out in Final Fantasy 12? And Final Fantasy 13 came out, and a lot of people didn't like the gameplay, so they altered the gameplay in different versions, and we don't know. But there's one thing that seems to be definite, and that is Square will never give up on Final Fantasy, ever. It makes way too much money. What's definite, though, is that Square will keep abandoning their other games, so you can have more of a, more generated revenue. But Final Fantasy, look, I love Final Fantasy, but Square, you really have to get your head out of your ass. You have to. You have too many iconic IPs that are on the shelf. Too many. And the thing is, when you come out with certain games, then you just make them mobile. Like, no, bring them to the console. Bring them to the PC. Matter of fact, you just brought Final Fantasy to the PC not too long ago, and there were a slew of problems with the PC version that you didn't fix, that gamers had to have a workaround for. And you're already talking about another Final Fantasy. Why don't you fix what you already got? Yeah, it's too much like right, because it's crazy talk. Yeah, crazy. Anyways, I think I'm done, man. This is just, it's beyond me when you see these type of things. And gamers, you gotta wake up, man. You gotta see that this shit is going on. Like I said, by the numbers, look at this shit. I've been talking about this shit for 5 years, and yet, 5 years in, still talking about it. For me, it feels like sometimes I'm talking to a wall. You know? Or maybe just this camera. Just talking to this camera. Because there's always going to be somebody out there who defends this bullshit. Last time I checked, gamers play games no matter what console they are, what platform they are. Doesn't matter. Because they want to play games. But you also have to understand companies that not every gamer has expended just expendable cash where I'm going to buy 300 pieces of microtransaction plus season pass DLC plus full price for this game. Then you wonder why people start pirating shit. Then you wonder why people wait for sales. And then you look at the initial sales company and say, well, we expected more sales and this is not doing good, so it's not going to get a sequel. Maybe if you stop nickel and diming the shit out of your consumer, you get more sales. You would. But it seems like you don't care about that. You're looking at the forecast and your charts, and you're not realizing that there are human beings on the other end who have families, who have friends, who go out, who have jobs. Some have low-wage jobs, so they can't afford that type of stuff. You're not taking into consideration your audience. But of course, you shouldn't have to worry about that, right? Because you're supposed to make your living doing this, and you're just going to push this out, and it's $1 billion industry now. Seriously, when games are starting to cost $180 million to be made, that should tell you something. And like I said before, I will guarantee you any amount of fucking money that Star Wars Battlefront for the PS2 will still be, at the end of this, will still be better than the new Battlefront that's coming out. That didn't take $180 million to make. It's beyond me on how bad gaming wants to be Hollywood. And anybody who has been gaming since the ColecoVision, the Intellivision, the Atari 2600, or grew up in arcades or anything, you should know, gaming was never, ever about being big-time mainstream Hollywood. Developers now want to be looked at as directors and be celebrities. It was never about that. It was about making a game, connecting with people, and having fun. These days, it's about, look what I made, you should praise me. And then you have all these idiots who just line up and say, yeah, I'll praise you. You're the greatest thing ever. Until the next game comes out. And then you'll say, I don't like you anymore. And then you'll come out with another game. This is the greatest game ever. I like you again. This shit is wrestling. It's wrestling. And the thing is, it was uncalled for. This type of maturity, this attitude that we have within the industry and our community, because it's not just our community. It's not. It's in the industry as well. It seems like everyone needs to just stop, take a look at themselves and say, what the fuck am I doing here? Seriously. Just like we saw this not too long ago, developers saying, you don't have to like games to make games. What? What the fuck you in here is for? Because it's just a job? You think it's just a 9 to 5? You just want to sit in a cubicle? No. That's not how this culture works. It's not. But you're going to act like that's what it's about. Right? It's just a job now. I'm just trying to make a living. When before it was, hey, I have drive, I have passion. Let's get a group of gamers together and let's try to make a game and make fun. Because why? Because we love games. No. Not anymore, man. It is so corporate. I mean, should we even talk about the times that how many times Peter Moore has lied to us or tried to dictate to us what we like? But it's okay, right? Because as long as EA keeps pushing out games, you'll be okay with that. But if I tell you what you like, what you should like, what I dictate to you, you'll jump down my throat about that. Yeah. I just find that real funny. Lots of self-reflecting to go along for everyone. It is. Anyways, I'm done. I will talk to y'all later. Y'all be safe. I'm out.